Good morning. My name is Bruce Heyman, and I'm the Executive Director, Los Angeles Maritime Institute. I'm delighted to be joining you today, even though we're on a cross-country road trip delivering goods to our grandchildren and children as we drive across. I'd like to share, in the next 15 minutes or so, I'd like to share some thoughts about the history of Los Angeles Maritime Institute and talk a little bit about our vessels. So let me go ahead and share a screen. Go. So hopefully now you're seeing the screen of what the office looks like today, coming to you from Kansas, and a delightful view here, though not a lot of ocean view. All right, and I went around town trying to find an audience for this event, and I was able to find these two wonderful individuals, my wife and my dog. All right, let's talk about the founding. Los Angeles Maritime Institute was founded by Captain Jim Gladson. Here you can see him at the helm of the Swift of Ipswich. And we were founded in 1992. Jim Gladson was a middle school teacher for many decades, and he was also worked at a continuation school. And for those of you that aren't familiar with a continuation school, these are schools for children that have gotten into some difficulty, and really the continuation school is their last shot before they're no longer involved in school at all. And what Jim found is he owned a 44-foot schooner called the Bloom. And he found that when he took the kids over a weekend, maybe for 4 or 5 days, over to Catalina Island, didn't have any expectations, didn't put any pressure on them, but all of a sudden they were interested in navigating, interesting at all the stuff going on at the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach and all of the marine traffic, etc. And all of a sudden he found out that their attendance went up at the continuation school and their grades went up. So that's when he retired, and he said, okay, in 1992, he founded Los Angeles Maritime Institute. And shortly thereafter, they bought their first vessel, which was the Swift of Ipswich. Now, here you can see a beautiful picture. Swift of Ipswich is a topsail schooner. We still own her today, though we took her out of service in 2006 to begin what was to be a couple of year restoration. And then 2008 hit, and as you all know, it's been a challenge. So we were planning on having Swift of Ipswich finished and completely restored, a little over a $3 million project. At the end of this year, but with the pandemic, that project slowed down, but not stopped. So we are continuing. And the project was not progressing for many, many years, not to imply that it takes 14 years to restore. After Swift was bought in 1992, it was only a few years before we outgrew it and we bought our second boat, and that is the Bill of Rights. Here you can see the Bill of Rights full of passengers and sailing. It's a schooner. We no longer own the Bill of Rights, but thankfully she's still plying the waters in Southern California and out of a great organization down in Chula Vista. This led to what I really want to talk about for the rest of the morning, which is, oh, I forgot one. How could I forget that? Several years ago, the tall ship American Pride that's been sailing in the Pacific out of Long Beach since 1997 suddenly became without an owner, and LAMI was able to receive a very generous donation from the city of Long Beach of the vessel, and we're continuing her mission. This is the official tall ship of the city of Long Beach, and it's now fully operational. And you all would have heard about her some more on Tuesday of this week, and you can go back, and Carolyn, her first mate, did an excellent job presenting about American Pride. So now we'll transition to Irving Johnson and Exie Johnson, our two of our Brigantines. And what I'm showing you here is the tall ship Yankee, and that is Electa Johnson. nicknamed Exie Johnson. And a lot of people ask us, well, why is Irving Johnson and Exie Johnson, where did these names come from? Well, Irving Johnson and Exie Johnson, or Electa Johnson, are a couple, and they are largely credited to be the founders of youth tall ship sailing. They've sailed around the world 7 times, starting in the 30s and ending in the 50s, with only a brief break during World War II. And each time they went to sea with high school students, and they went to sea for 18 months. Can you imagine spending your senior year or junior year or freshman at sea for 18 months on all sorts of incredible ports of call? That was their education. We were blessed to be able to have Exie Johnson actually christen the vessels. Unfortunately, Irving had passed away by the time they were completed. So I'm going to go through a presentation very, very quickly. You should encourage me to move along. This presentation can take 2 hours, and we have way less time than that. But here you can see how Irving and Exie got their start with Purple Heart, beautiful hardwood. That tree is several hundred feet tall, coming from Guyana. And here you can see that the trees are actually being harvested and arriving in San Pedro. That's a 2 fork truck lift that's actually lifting a piece of what will become the keel of Irving Johnson and Exie Johnson. Here I want to stop for a minute. The project manager for this was Chuck Heil, and the naval architect was Bill Krelock. And then, of course, there's our founder, Captain Jim Gladson, with some absolutely gorgeous wood that has been prepared for the vessel in the background. Here you can see on the cribbing, you can see 2 keels laying on their side, being ready. And this was built right on the waterfront in San Pedro. It's now the downtown harbor cut. The port has done a beautiful job building a harbor cut there. And we've moved a few berths down. This is berth 85. We're now at berth 78. And here you can see the shipwrights shaping the keel and bringing it to shape. One of my favorite activities, even though the boats these days can be designed with a CAD CAM, it's still exciting. I know I've gotten to do this project where you get to loft the tall ship and on full-size graph paper. In my case, the graph paper was measured about 95 feet by 35 feet. And here you can see an example of someone lofting it. The duck that's a lead weight that's used to hold the batten, and you can see a curved batten or a batten that's forming a curve laying there. So this is a great way to make sure that you understand the design, that everything's going to fit together, and you can make your patterns from it. All right, and here's some beautiful work where you can see the 4 foot of the vessels coming together. You can see the keel in the background, and you can see the beautiful joinery that, when done right, is you can't slip a piece of paper between those joints. So here you can see it stood up now and starting to take the shape. We can all tell it's going to be a boat. And I'm just going to move along here quickly. This is the giant ship saw that is used. You can see here we use laminated white oak to make the frames. They did a beautiful job gluing them up, and the big saw is used to cut the bevel. It's got a C. You can see the large C there. That's so that the saw can cant back and forward and cut that bevel into the side of the frames. And here you can see the frames are ready for the horning stage. And after they've been horned and then placed, you can see a lot of the scrap lumber or the junk lumber that's used to hold everything in place, from poppets and cross pawls, etc. Beautiful. It's so gorgeous before you fill up the inside of a ship to be able to see the wonderful shape. Here you can see traditional tools being used, maybe not the chainsaw, but certainly the adze is a very common tool for shaping things and bringing them down to the finished shape. There's what I was talking about, that gorgeous shape where you can see the progression on the shape of the hull. Unfortunately, for many of our tall ships, the prettiest part of the boat is actually under the water. You can see some of the very curved frames getting lifted into place. And there's a beautiful example of the Vincent Thomas Bridge in the background. The firehouse is the dome building there, and you can see the two ships framed up in front of you. Last frames getting loaded in. Of course, to meet modern Coast Guard regulations, you can't do this without a lot of ballast lead, and there's a huge amount of ballast lead plus cement in the bilge of the vessel, all to counteract the weight of a brigantine, which has so much rigging and spars aloft. You can see the frames on the horning frame and the transom, one of the more complicated pieces to put together on a vessel because of the angles and the way the scarf joints come together. And the rigging coming together, blocks being built, lots and lots of volunteers that were involved in the construction of these boats. Here you can see where they're actually boring the shaft log for the vessel. This is where the propeller shaft will go. They're single screw directly in front of the rudder on the center line of the vessel. Oh my goodness, look at that. Isn't that a gorgeous shape with the light? And you can see the pattern and obviously there's all the scrap lumber in the middle just so that the shipwrights can get to where they need to be working. Here you can see how the scrap lumber has been removed, and they removed all the fasteners and using hardwood dowels and epoxy to fill the voids left by the vacated bolts. Beautiful view of the vessel looking out towards the main channel. And obviously a lot of the wood needs to be steamed so that especially things like bilge stringers and beam shelves. But that's not the only thing. Here you can see hot gloves being used to handle the very large timber coming out, and nothing better than lots of manpower to be able to move these things around. Bringing it into the vessel, it's still steaming, though not everybody's wearing gloves. They must have lots of calluses at this point working on the project. However, you can always use your steamer for something way more delicious than steaming a piece of wood. How about a nice crab feed to make it great for the crew? Here you have making sure it's level and straight, and there's the rabbet being cut into the keel. And a lot of the traditional tools that you would have seen shipwrights using for hundreds of years. The stem in the forefront of the vessel is always solid wood and lots of different pieces. Here you can see the cant frames depart from the normal lateral configuration. Deck beams going in place. This vessel is largely trunneled fastened. And so not as many metal fasteners on it. The boat should last a very long time. See the beautiful deck and deck beams, carlins. Big sanders, big tools, lots of volunteers, lots of shipwrights caulking. Engines always need beautiful spars for going aloft. And here we have the vessels being moved from where they were constructed on the cribbing to the edge of the water, where they will be lifted into the water with very large cranes. There you can see the two of them on the edge of the pier. And here we have the launching of the vessels, and there's Exie Johnson going to christen the vessel. There she is. And the vessel is lifted in with large cranes into the water. So they look so small without their sticks and their rigging, but they're about 110 feet length overall, and they carry 38 passengers, 30 passengers overnight and 8 crew, and they all, there's 12 in A compartment, 18 in B compartment, and then the crew live in C compartment. There are 5 watertight bulkheads on the vessel. There we have Nancy Richardson on the right and Electa X.E. Johnson on the left, here at the helm on Swift of Ipswich. And of course, Nancy Richardson, who's still an active volunteer with us today and was one of our founding board members. Vessel still being worked on, and lots of happy people out in the water. Like to thank you all. Let's see a picture of the vessel powered up. There we go. That's what they look like when they're underway. Not too different from the way they are today. So I wish we were all together, and I would like to thank all of you for at least tuning in for this virtual event. I'd like to thank the leadership and the team at Tall Ships America, and for the Galveston Historical Society for hosting this. And I wish everybody well and stay safe. And I look forward to a time when we can all be together again. Thank you very much, and take care.